Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on Divorce WTF Now. I'm Lori. I'm a certified divorce mediator, certified divorce specialist, life and relationship coach, and I'm joined today by one of my favorite people in the world, Shannon. We've done many podcasts together, and she's back so we can just have a great conversation and a couple laughs on what dating looks like after divorce and how she kind of approaches dating after a few, gosh, how long's it been since a couple of years have passed
since her, like a couple of years
since her, oh
I've
my
been, like,
Lord.
single.
So it's changed a bit, and then her approach has changed a bit, and I just love talking to her, and any excuse I can to get her in my office and chat with me, I'm going to use. So Shannon, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Always.
Oh my gosh, we were talking prior to this podcast, and I'm like, stop, I got to record. This is too good, because I just enjoy hearing about your journey. So here we are. Last time we talked, we talked a little bit about dating and what it looked like and what kind. I mean, now everything's online, right? It's dating apps. Have you met anybody in an old-fashioned or organic kind of way?
Well, I think it's interesting it's like apps, but also COVID, right? So there's been like this slosh of people that probably went online to online dating because nobody could do it in person.
And then when you meet somebody you want to meet, you couldn't even go meet them.
So that's, I think, where the whole like come over to my place for a date probably started.
So yeah,
exactly. And so then I think, I mean, even the last few times that I've gone on the apps, like you can kind of see this slosh back to, okay, there's really no quality people on the apps. They must be in the bars or the restaurants or whatever.
Really?
Yeah. So but I will say, at least in my experience, it's still just as hard to find other people in real life. So that sucks.
Yeah, because you have a pretty active, I mean, you don't sit at home.
Very active social life. I
Right.
mean, it's not like just me hanging out at a bar every, Tuesday night. It's like go paddle boarding, I'll go on bike rides, I'll be at the grocery store, I'll be, at my nephew's soccer practice looking for a single dad. Like they're just, I mean, there's so many different opportunities, but at the same time, it's also really difficult to identify who's single.
Right. And do you think COVID has made people less social and they just kind of keep to themselves? Or do you think that this was something that was just difficult before?
I think it was difficult before, but I don't know. It's almost like I'm sure we all blame COVID, but I just think that that's kind of where this whole like hookup culture like kind of was born from too, where it's so easy for people to like hook up now because it's literally that easy.
And aren't there apps just specifically for hookups?
Yes.
So you really have to be careful if you're new to the single life.
Yes.
What you're getting on, what you're putting out there.
Yes, but the men are getting even, I don't want to say they're giving more credit to say they're more smart, but I do think that they're infiltrating the other apps that aren't necessarily meant for hookup, but they're putting in a lot of effort and a lot of work just for the hookup and then to ghost. So just the standards in general, I find to be very, very, very low. But at the same time, it's like, I know there's been plenty of times I've been successful doing the same things that men do. And so it's kind of like,
and we talked about that.
Them all.
We talked about, because it depends on what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're just looking for companionship and adult activities.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily want to have the emotional aspect or be tied to anything. You're just trying to figure it out, get your Bambi.
And those conversations are very easy. Like it is like I said, if I've been on the other side of it, if you go in with a certain like mentality and goal in mind, it is the most transparent like transaction you'll ever experience.
It's interesting that you say that, transactional, but it really kind of is.
It's very transactional, but it's also like, so I think where it gets really really muddy is the men that I've encountered where they kind of are like this, it's like the wolf in sheep's clothing. It's kind of this like, oh, I'm here on Bumble and I'm looking for a relationship and blah, blah, blah. But like second message, it's like
a dick
pic. Or, like you try to say like, I messaged this guy, he said one of his interests was barbecuing. And so I just was like, oh, like, awesome. Like, we're on a first date, you're making me dinner, like what's on the barbecue? What do you think his answer was? My meat.
Oh my God.
Jeez.
And please tell me that that ended the conversation, because I don't care if you're just looking for companionship for, adult activity, or if you're looking for a relationship. That guy, that response,
Yeah.
ugh,
Yeah.
just
But you're like,
feeling.
mommy, and so you're like, okay.
Yeah,
So, but like, so I always like do the double take where like I'll go back to their profile and be like, wait a second, like you actually put on here like the qualities that you're looking for in a relationship. And these are the things that, you expect out of a partner, or like just the prompts that they use are just so funny, because you're like, if you wanted to just hook up, like you should have just said that. Like there's options to say that on your profile, but don't come at me.
right. I would rather them mark that box on the profile and say my meat's on the barbecue. That's just,
and that's fine. Do that. Like
right.
go on Tinder.
And then you
or,
can skip along if you don't want it to be, if that's not
but
for
don't,
you.
yeah, but just don't like, I don't know. Sometimes I think that men try to see like how much they can get away with. And so I think that's where like this sort of powerful woman kind of comes in, where it's not even like, oh, boss babe, bitchy boss babe, look at me, I'm a babe, but it's more about just like standing your ground. And
Right.
I think if anything, like just this whole journey has taught me like to not be this weak, like, oh, how am I ever going to survive divorce? No one's ever going to want me, because I was there.
Oh,
I
you
was
were
just
there.
this wilted little plant, that just had, no nutrients at all.
I mean, and you were just
And I was
fearful that you were
terrified
going to stay that way forever.
because my identity for so long was taking care of this other person,
right.
and not getting certain things out of it that I needed. And so you like take that out of the equation, and you're kind of like, oh my gosh, like I could actually go out there and have my own pick of the litter, and I could set my own boundaries. And if people are okay with that, great. If they're not, why would I want to be with them anyway?
Right. And I am so glad you brought that up, because first, way back when we first started talking, you were not in this space at all.
No.
And you had been so used to caretaking your terms and not getting what you needed in return. And the minute that went away, instead of going, okay, that's not my job anymore, and I'm this confident, powerful woman.
Yeah.
It took a bit to get you there, to remind you of who you are. And then add dating to that, which is nerve-wracking when you've been in a marriage.
Yeah.
You don't expect to be back in the dating pool. And the dating pool has changed a little since you were in it before.
Yeah.
And then, at first, because I think you're right, guys see what they can get away with. Some women do too. It's not a gender thing.
Sure.
But some people just tell you what they think you want to hear to get where they want to go.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of people do. It's kind of like the type of catfishing they do. They may show you their picture, but they're lying or not telling you the truth about what they're actually looking for.
Yeah.
And you, after going through that, or having a couple of dates like that where they said one thing and did another, something happened in you, something changed.
Yeah.
And you kind of took your own power back and figured out what you wanted, what you would and would not put up with.
Yeah.
And I want you to tell us about kind of that, how you approach dating now.
Yeah. I feel like I had to be humbled at first, because it's kind of like as much as you want to go in with the confidence, like you're going to get knocked down and bang a little bit.
Yes.
And that's okay. Like, I don't think that I'm the greatest person in the world, but I think
but that's okay.
But do I think I have a lot of great things to offer? Absolutely.
Right.
But I'm nowhere near perfect.
Mm.
It's like, obviously a partnership is, it's a 2-person thing, and I can only be responsible for what I bring to the table.
Right.
So yeah, like it definitely, like it humbles you a little bit, but also like, I don't want to say scars you, but it just like that, like it helped me build my own boundaries, because it's like you get ghosted, or you get the guys that, will say anything to get in your pants, and they'll, it's just your standard, like dishonest person. They'll say everything that they won't do to you, and then they'll end up doing it. So you're like,
which is just so,
you just lose faith in people in general.
That's what I'm saying. It's so wrong that how do you know when the good person comes along to even be able to trust what's coming out of their mouth?
I mean, you don't.
I mean, all so they could get the cookie.
Yeah. And it's like, I always read, it's always like, I'm always trying to like read or like watch videos, or just like this topic always like intrigues me. And I'm not like a games person. And so I do feel like a lot of the advice out there is like how to play the game. And I'm like, you know what, at the end of the day, again, if I can control that I'm a good person. I value honesty. I value communication. Here's what I bring to the table. Here's what I commit to. This is what you'll expect from me. Like, that's all I could do.
And that's enough.
Right. And I have to be confident that that is enough.
And you have to be confident what they're telling you.
Yeah.
Is.
So you kind of have to like give it back a little bit. Like, that's what I find is like, if men are testing those sort of boundaries with me, like, I just have to hold strong. Like, it's sad when a man, and again, this is purely in my experience of dealing with men.
We're not saying all men are bad. Like this. We're not saying all women do this.
The men that I have encountered where it's like, you're having to say no a lot. And like, I don't want to do that. You're going too far. And that could just be in the conversation, or they're really trying to like, let me come over. And you're like, I've already said no. Like, this is what my boundary is. Like, I will make a date with you and like next week when I'm free. And it can be in a public place, and it can be an agreed upon, whatever. But like, it's always this, oh, well, we can go here because it sounds like it's close to your place and maybe we can hang out there after. And so it's just like, you're constantly having to like weed out the people that like, if you have to say no and like beat someone off the stick that many times, like,
especially someone you've never met who wants to come to your place.
Danger.
Right. Exactly. Stranger danger.
Yeah.
You don't know. I mean, there's the whole safety aspect, and then there's the whole respect aspect.
Yeah.
You've asked me.
Yeah.
I have given you my answer. My answer is no. And no should be good enough.
Yeah.
I mean, no doesn't require any other explanation.
Yeah.
If you don't want to do it. And so many times, my experience and the women that I've spoken with, and on occasion myself, we don't feel good about ourselves. So we're easily swayed to do something we really don't want to do to make somebody else happy.
Yeah.
To keep the relationship going.
Yeah. And if those are issues that you've had like in past relationships or your marriage, like, it's a little bit of that PTSD where you're like, great, like, I haven't grown at all. Like, I'm literally just giving in to
Here I go
a
again.
Man that wants what they want, and my feelings don't matter. Like, I think also part of it is like, I'm a part of this equation too.
Right.
So when you think about hookup culture, so not even the guys, right, that you like actually want to think about in relationships, the hookup culture is that they're, in my situation, right, a man and a woman. You think that I'm just going to hook up with a man just so he can get his, and like, so he can have a great time? Like, I'm still here too.
Right.
Like,
it needs to be equal.
Even
if that's all the connection that you two have.
Yeah. If it's going to go transactional, like, again, like, I don't know what it is too, where it's like, we haven't realized how like women need a little more than just like a dick pic and come over. Right. Like, exactly.
Right.
It's like, we
don't need flowers, and we don't need to be rude.
Yeah, but it's called foreplay.
Right. For a reason.
And that comes in the shape of very many like
absolutely
things. So it's always just like really funny too, like, so I know for sure that when the guys are like, let's go straight to blah blah blah, and there isn't that like awareness that like, oh, her needs need to be met too, I definitely write those people off, because I'm like, even if it were to turn into something, or I misread and it turned into a relationship, it would feel very one-sided.
Right.
So the ones that
cut that out.
So I just so that's how I weed them out. And then it's sort of, then there's like this larger pool of candidates where they could go either way. Right. Like,
see, this is what I want to talk about, because you have boxes that you'll put categories. The categories.
So you have all these like, incoming candidates, and then you sort of have to, so the ones that are like, let's just hook up and I don't care if you're even there, it's like, okay, out the door. The ones that don't message back, right? Out the door. But the ones that like, they seem like, you're attracted to them, you're they are somewhat communicative, like they want to make a date, whatever. Those are the ones you're like, okay, like this could go many different ways. Right. So you go on the date, you hang out with them. And I feel like I think most people would say like, they pretty much know within that first like 5 minutes if that's going to be a good date or not. I've gone on plenty of dates where in that like literally the first 30 seconds, I want to like stab my eye out with a pen and like wish that a pipe burst at my house so I could leave. So like, so bad.
How in 30 seconds are you, and I'm just getting this vision in my head.
Fishers, right?
Okay, so not who they said they were going to be.
So that's why I even too, like, I'm like, man, I wish I need to do more phone calls and FaceTimes and things like that to verify somebody before we go out.
And you're meeting in a public place for the first time, no matter what transaction you're doing.
Yes.
Because okay, safety is, absolutely.
And it could vary too. Like they're like, and I'll like, there's somebody that like I'm talking to right now where we FaceTime a lot. And it's honestly like made me like way more attracted to him, get his personality more like, and then the next step is to like meet in person. But it's like that there's that buffer. So I already feel a lot more comfortable by the time I actually see him.
Good.
But yes, but more often than not, if you're not having those conversations, you're meeting out in public. Yeah. So then you get the catfishers where you're like, okay, definitely not gonna happen.
My secretary doesn't go on many dates, and she's a little older. And so she had a catfisher, and she saw this gentleman as she was circling the parking lot looking for a parking space. Yeah. And she knew that was her date, but she also knew
hoping
it was not the guy in the picture, and was very hoping it wasn't. And so I think she texted him and said, "Are you here?" And he said, "I'm standing here." And she could clearly see from her car, and she just kept right on going.
Yeah.
Because, and as terrible as that sounds to stand somebody up, that's not the guy that she was meeting. So as far as she was concerned, the guy she was meeting was not there. So
I mean, I'm sure, I don't know, we probably talked about it before, but like the one really bad one I had where the guy was walking up to me and I thought my date was behind him. You know what I mean? And I'm like, walking up to me and that didn't bother me. It was more about like my physical attractions are much deeper my attractions are much deeper than physical.
Right.
Like I'm very much like a personality, heart, chemistry, all that stuff. And like, I don't mind a big guy. Like that's cool.
I love a big guy.
Yeah. Super cute. But it was like, you have a lifelong of bad habits and you're trying to tell me this happened during COVID. Like, no. And that's where it was just like, it felt very, like untruthful, disingenuous. And like, if that's your value, like, then no, I don't want any part of that.
Yeah, because this is where they're putting their best freaking foot forward.
And
it's only going to get worse.
Like it could be anything that men are just, these men, at least that I go on dates with, like, they're just very misleading about who they are. And I think for like, and again, I can only control what I do.
Right.
And
what you'll put up with
unfiltered. I'll give you my full body. Like, like I will, be a balance of charming and funny, but I'll also be really honest about what I want. So I feel like my profile is very, even some of the pictures where I'm like, oh, it's not my best, but that's what I look like.
Yeah. And you have not had any problem having any visitors.
Exactly. So
let's go back to the categories.
Yeah. So the categories. Yeah. So if they're not a catfish, then there's kind of this moment where for me, it's like, okay, I definitely see potential with this person. So we put them on hold for now. But if in that moment you're like, oof, like red flags, like this does not seem like something that I would want to pursue in a partner. And it could just be like a non-negotiable too. Like, right. I mean, I think some people will say like, I never want to get married again, or I don't want kids, or I want 10 kids, or so
something that
not necessarily specific to me, but like, again, like there could just be non-negotiables. So I convert them into, basically the hookup category. Cause you're like still super attracted to you, but I don't see anything more than us hooking up.
It can't go anywhere.
It's not going to go anywhere. And I would say, so I convert them into sort of a hookup. Because if it's not going to go anywhere, then damn, at least let me have some fun.
Right. And this is the part I love, because you have come so far.
Yeah.
and dating is something that you have to do.
Yeah.
And it's not pretty a lot of times, and it's frustrating. I've got so many single clients and friends that the horror stories I hear I sit there with my jaw open and I'm just fascinated.
Yeah.
But you have taken something that is frustrating and you have taken the power, set the boundaries for yourself, and you're making it something that can be enjoyable. You don't have to dismiss a good guy that you're attracted to because you want to get married maybe in the future and he doesn't, but you're not putting yourself in a relationship that you're going to have problems with because you may want to get married in the future and he doesn't.
Yeah.
And you're enjoying each other's company.
Yeah.
And it's okay for women to do that.
Yeah.
It's okay for people to do that. You're not, hurting anybody. In fact, everybody's having a great time.
Yeah.
And men would get a high five or a fist bump, or their buddies would be like, oh, you're so awesome. And we get shamed.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I joke about that with my friends all the time, because it's like, it does become a running joke, because like, this is not, even before I got married, I was, I'd only been with a very small handful of people. Like I didn't have what they call the hoe phase. Like I never had that.
Right.
And I think the hoe phase gets like a bad name just because it's like, again, like, yeah, you might be hooking up with a lot of people, but at the same time,
I mean, isn't that what
it
dating
changes
is?
the, yeah, but it's like, but it changes the boundary. It's like that's why I say like I kind of convert them into a more, let's call it a casual category, right? Because sometimes it ends in a hookup and sometimes it doesn't. I just know that like I reset what I'm now looking for in that person, and it's not the, yes, I'd like to be in a, you know, a committed relationship. Like marriage, I don't even know if marriage is in my future, right?
Right.
Like, but do I know that I want to be in a committed relationship? Yes. But that no longer becomes a requirement for this person, right?
Right. Because you know it's not a match.
Because I
with
know
that
it's not a
person.
match in that way, but we have a great time. And yeah, like what could we mutually get out of it? Like,
So let's talk about some, and certainly we don't have to name names or
Yes.
nicknames or anything, and I won't put you through that. But they say, and this is true, men and women are very different. And there's the thing that women can't have sex without becoming emotional, and men, you know,
Yeah,
so that's not true.
Yeah, we're just like debunking that myth.
Okay, so let's talk about that.
But I think that's the mindset. It's like, I think there are a lot of women and probably men too, like that go into something where if they don't shift that mindset, 100% you're going to get attached and get hurt. Because I've definitely done that with these men where in my brain, I haven't accepted the conversion. And I do. Like, I will be like, wow, oh my God, I'm in love. Like that was so amazing. And what a great night. And I had so much fun. And then it's like, I'll text, I'll try to call. Like it's, you're trying to keep the conversation engaged.
And you're watching your phone and you're waiting for that response.
And just being ignored, or you're getting again like the bare minimum, like
because they went in knowing it was
one-word
one
answers.
thing,
Yep.
and you changed the rules of the game by getting emotional.
And so it's like, so that's where like, yeah, like when I just have known when that is not like, that's not going to go any further. And so it's like, yeah, it's like I have to switch off in my brain and say, okay, so this is definitely not somebody they'll probably ever really engage with much again, or this will be something that like kind of casually can continue, but there's no expectations.
And so you can do that. And some people can't. Some people, because that is such an intimate thing.
Because they'll think, well, but they'll change, you know, like, they get a little taste, and I think that, you know, they'll see how awesome you are, and don't worry, you'll convert them, because everyone always says, you know, oh, you know, my friend met their husband on Tinder, and it's like, well, good for you. That was like 1 out of a million. Like,
I am so sorry, but the worst, and I cannot, it literally makes the hair stand up on the back of my neck when somebody said, but I thought they would change for me. No.
Yeah. Why do you think we're all sitting here being divorced?
They are.
I'll tell you right now, mine didn't change.
They are. And because you chose not to believe them, this is how it happens.
They're not going to change.
No.
A grown-ass man is not going to change.
Or a grown-ass woman.
Or a grown-ass woman. We're not going to change. We are who we are.
And unless they want to change. Now, if they want to make a change, they will let you know. But they are not going to make a change because you are fabulous.
No.
Because you are not fabulous, because you want them to, because you need them to. They will only do it if it suits them. People do what works for them.
Yeah.
And they don't stop doing that until it no longer works.
Yes.
Period. And so so we've got some people in this transactional box, we'll call it, for lack of a better term. Is that a one-time only transaction? Could that be an ongoing thing? And are there rules involved if it's long-term?
Yeah, I think the ones like, I'm just trying to think of the ones that have been like more ongoing.
And do the men ever get emotional with you and change the terms of the agreement?
So yeah, interestingly, yes. It happens a lot later than you'd think. But somebody that I was involved with very, very early on, when I had first started dipping my toe in the pool and like having to be like, oh my God, this is my life now. I did meet a person that, and that person is technically still in my life. But like,
did we put him in the transactional box right away, or was there
was he was in the relationship bucket, and then he kind of slowly went into this like casual bucket because there was more ongoing communication. And so so it just kind of fell into like, I don't want to call it an arrangement, because I think that's sucks, but I think there's a casual, when people say like they want something casual, I think the arrangement is sort of what the boundary is. And
Right.
like you kind of figure out what that routine is. And so this is somebody that we like, our thing was like we would go out to dinner and we'd hang out after.
You just enjoy each other's
Yeah,
company.
and we just really liked sushi. You know, that was like something that we did. We liked to go and get sushi and have a little sake and make out, and you know, and then like
Sounds
end
like
up
a
at
good
somebody's
date to
house.
me.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that became more of like a couple times a week. But again, there was no expectation of a relationship because him and I had had that conversation multiple times. And he would say things like, I know you want more. And I said, yes, but I'm not necessarily looking for that with you.
Wow, good
Because,
answer.
right?
Yeah.
Like, because you can't like you're like, and I said I appreciated him being very honest and that he just wasn't really there and he just
Because just him saying, I know you want more, there's a but coming.
and I'm like, yeah, I
Yeah,
do want more,
yeah.
but it's not necessarily with you.
So don't
because
feel bad.
we're-
I'm enjoying what we're doing.
and we had it was weirdly like transparent where we both knew that we would see other people. And sometimes like I was actually like dating somebody where I said, hey, like to be respectful to this other person, I'm not going to see you. And the same thing, he, you know, saw another woman for a little bit, whatever, but we kept coming back together. And we always had a really great time. And so, so just recently, so again, this is like fast forward, like well, almost 2 years.
I was gonna say this has been quite because I
and this was ongoing. Like this was pretty actively ongoing for like a year and a half. So
I remember this. Yeah,
he came out the woodwork a couple months ago, and oh, you're wifey material. Can't believe I let you slip out of my finger. Like, and I just was like, are you drunk? Like, what is happening? Like, I hadn't talked to him in like a few months because I was kind of like
text or call.
Text.
And just out of the gate with all this stuff.
Yes.
Wow.
And I had because I had kind of told him, well, basically while he was like telling me all these things where he just was like, you know, I feel like it was kind of funny. It was like he's like, I think I'm closer to being closer to wanting to be in a relationship. And
so
I
just
like,
stay
what?
right there. Let me date.
Yeah. So I'm like, so really you didn't do anything, but you're probably just having like a bad night and like you had a bad date or something. But yeah, but he's like telling me all this very like, you know, obviously very complimentary stuff. Like you're an amazing person. Like you're seriously wifey material. Like I can't believe like I didn't scoop you up and make you mine and like all this stuff. And I kind of had to like tell him like, you know, I've kind of grown out of that with you. Like that's
I was going to say, how did it make you feel being on the receiving end of that from him?
It was, I mean, obviously very flattering, but at the same time, it's like, I think this is why a lot of people miss their shot. Like I'm more willing to shoot my shot because that's just who I am. Like I'd rather just be like, hey, I want something more with you. I want to see you. I want to visit you. I want to spend time with you. I want to blah, blah, blah. And when it's not reciprocated, right, you're kind of like, okay, well, I shoot my shot and that's all I can do. And so it's like, it's just funny that he comes out of the woodwork like so much later. And again, it's not like that's what I was looking from him at that time.
No.
But had he maybe come to that realization earlier, like, who knows? I don't know. Maybe our like weird paths would have like entered, like our little arrows would have like intersected more, but they were always like parallel.
This way.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious. And so, because sometimes that happens, people, you know, have whatever type of relationship, transactional, or they try to have an actual committed relationship and it doesn't work out because whatever reason, and one person realizes it later. And if the other person has feelings, and sometimes it can work, but you just kind of grew out of your relationship with him.
Yeah. And I was honest with him about it. Like, I don't know, like I think if anything, like so much of this has taught me just to like, why are we all so afraid to talk about what we want to talk about?
100%.
And I will say one of the biggest regrets in my marriage and even going into the divorce is I was terrified to be honest with him.
Now, let me ask you, because that is one of the things that I really work hard with couples in marital mediation, because here's the deal. Expectations of the other party have to be expressed.
Yeah.
And the other party has to have an option to say, yeah, I want to meet those expectations, or yeah, I can.
Yeah.
And expectations about money, communication, sex,
Yeah.
kids, everything needs to be on the freaking table.
Yeah.
If you didn't do it before you got married, you damn sure better do it after.
Yeah.
Because it's just a recipe for disaster. When you said you were terrified, to be honest, was it out of fear of hurting his feelings, upsetting him? Or what was the fear?
It's a really good question. I mean, it sucks when you feel like the person that you're supposed to be the closest to is the one that you can't even talk to. But yeah, it is about like, you don't want to hurt their feelings. You also don't know what could happen out of that. Like you can only, again, control like what you say and what your feeling is. But yeah, I never wanted to hurt his feelings at all. But when shit hit the fan and we started being way more honest, yeah, it was hurtful. And, there's obviously a tactful way to do it.
I was going to say, to be honest doesn't mean to be hurtful. But in your situation, you had bottled it up for so long. And by the time you guys truly acknowledged what was going on,
it was just too late.
It was too late.
It was just too late. Like the damage I think that we say too, like with women, it's like when they get to a point where they get to a certain point and it's like a point of no return for women.
100%.
Like when we're out of that, like, emotional, like, that trust bubble or what, like once we're out of that, like once like lines have been drawn in the sand, it's just way too difficult to go back to. Yeah. Way too difficult.
I think everybody has a line.
Yeah.
But women, in my experience and just in the clients that I've seen in my 30 years, we will try, because we're the caretakers, the nurturers for the most part. There's a lot of men who are too. We will try and fix, and we will try everything and everything and everything. And sometimes we feel like we're standing there waving our arms saying, hey, I'm over here. Hey, let's fix this. And when you don't get hurt, when you've tried for so long and you finally say, or you've crossed that line and you say, I can't. When we say we're done, we're usually pretty well done.
Yeah.
And it's at that time that a lot of the spouses then turn and go, but wait, I've heard you.
Yeah.
So it's really, really rough. When I was married, and I'm never going to say a bad word about him. He's not a bad guy. We were together for the time that we were supposed to be together, and we're better apart now.
Yeah.
But I used to have to time what I said, carefully craft how I was going to say it. And it's exhausting.
Yeah.
And you don't realize when you're doing it that it's taking much more time, energy, and stress than if you just would say, hey, and men hate to hear we need to talk. So don't say that.
Yeah.
But I feel this, and we got to let go what we believe their answer should be.
Yeah.
And let them say how they feel. But it's hard.
Well, and it also depends on the partner. Like, unfortunately, mine did not like to have those conversations, right? So it's like he was not in touch with his emotions. That was very, like, I knew that just how he grew up, how his family was. They were not communicators. They buried all of their feelings deep down. And I'm such a feeler.
You are
such a feeler
in communication.
Right. And so it was like, and then you don't want to be the nagging wife. And, so it's like there was a lot of fears that came up. And so I think just like in retrospect, like if I could go back and tap my little married self on the shoulder, what are you doing? Why can't, like, there's a tactful way to do it. It's not like when I'm setting boundaries with men, it's like, going on some soapbox. It's just like,
there's a
common sense. It's just like, hey, this is what I'm looking for. And if that's something that you're interested in, great, let's continue talking. But if not, literally no hard feelings.
That's the whole thing.
I just don't want to get to a place where, like you ghost me or I ghost, like, I don't ghost because I think it's childish, but it's just like, until you, like, I just don't want to get to the point where I'm putting in a lot of time or energy or effort, like investing in something that's not going to go anywhere. Like, I'm tired of that. Like, my time is more valuable than that. And so I'm more willing to, like, listen, I probably still give people way more the benefit of the doubt than I should, but that's just my character. Like, I'd rather you really prove me wrong. And so I'm always, nice and kind and respectful. And, even, so, like right now on Bumble, it's like there's, 6 guys that are sort of in this, they're on their way out basically, but they, they stop engaging in the conversation. And so at some point, right, like I have to put, like, if I know that I've been like, I've tried to reach out once or twice is when I'm like, oh, Shannon, you're giving him way too much. Right. But at that point, it's kind of like making a statement. I don't have to go and be a jerk and say something snarky or whatever, but I can literally just say, hey, like, something about like, I will say something kind of snarky, or I'll be like, wow, this conversation has been intriguing by myself. But hey, I'm actually looking for somebody to actually engage in conversation. I'm not sure that that's what's happening here. So, hey, I wish you the best of luck. Like, you don't have to be a dick about it.
No, you really
but just something to like, again, I think there's always a lesson in all of this. And like I just got a message from a guy. So I met him on Bumble. We have been having like a really wonderful exchange, like no dick pics, like no talk of sex, but like just this really good intellectual conversation.
Love that.
So it got to the point where there had been like enough exchanges where I said, I'm gonna get this man my phone number.
Oh.
And so I just said, we kind of send these like, or we've been sending these kind of longer messages and, and then he'll send me longer messages. And so anyway, at the end of mine, I just said, hey, if it would work better, because there were some times where like, again, I don't need him to be communicating with me at all times every day. Right. There was a couple times, days had passed, whatever. And so I just said, hey, would it be better if we communicated, via phone? Like, feel free to call or text me. So that was on, what does it say? The 4th. That was on the 1st. And I'm like, girl, it is the 4th. And this man has not messaged me back. And I gave him my phone number. So this morning he texted me, or I got this text and he said, hey, it's, so-and-so from Bumble. And he's like, again, he could be full of shit, but he was very genuine and just saying like, I was panicked because I messaged you the other day and you hadn't responded back to me. So I thought I like messed up and I realized I input your phone number wrong. So I texted the wrong person and I said, okay, like,
well, you'll give him the benefit of the doubt this time. Yeah.
Doubt, but at the same time, but he just was like, I didn't want you to think I was like a flake or something. And I said, whether or not that was true, like, okay, like at least he gave me something that didn't feel like some outlandish.
Right. And you have no reason not to believe him right now.
Right. And so it's just kind of like, okay, like I'm not going to write him off for that.
No.
Am I going to go into it cautious? Of course.
I was going to say, you're just going to watch a little harder now.
Yeah. And I'm sure he feels stupid because I think, unfortunately, when those things actually happen, like they suck. Like I'd be like, shit, I forgot to respond to that email. Like, me, like I forget to respond to text messages all the time.
Listen, I know. I'm like, listen, Shannon, it's 3 days. She's ghosting me.
And I'm like, nope, just really have ADD.
And I love talking with you, and we're going to wrap this up before the recording stops. But here's the thing. You are 100% accurate, and you figured this out a lot sooner than a lot of people. You have to tell people what you want and what you expect and give them a chance to say, I want to do that and I can do that. Because if you don't tell them, you're still going to have those expectations. Yeah. And when they don't do it, then we get all twirled up and then we get mad at them and then the cycle continues. And it's just, I don't care where you are or what kind of relationship you're in. You have to communicate those expectations. And it's not enough to just communicate. You have to give the other party a chance to say, I can do that. Yeah. Here's what I need from you.
Yeah.
And the fact that you have taken something that, and I know we keep saying women and men and women and men, but anybody,
yeah.
We all, after divorce, can feel a little less than.
Yes.
And it is very scary to put yourself out there when you feel great and try, 10 times harder when you feel less than. But you have taken something and you have just the power over your own boundaries and the control of what Shannon wants and what Shannon needs. And you do it in a way that you're not a dick.
Yeah.
You're
just like
respectful,
unapologetic about it.
Unapologetically who you are.
Yeah.
And they can take it or leave it.
Yeah.
And you're going to do only what you want to do. And you're not hurting anybody, but you're having a great time.
Yeah.
I love it. And I just want to keep hearing about it. And I know you shared a little bit with me about this current situation before, and we're not going to talk about it now, but I expect another podcast where we do a follow-up on what's happening now.
As we're doing this, I'm getting text messages from,
I was going to say, listen, this woman came in and in one of our coaching sessions says, nobody's ever going to love me. Now I practically have to give her an armed bodyguard to get to the car. It's crazy. She is beautiful inside and out. And it's really her heart and personality that really make her shine. And I enjoy every meeting we have. I enjoy watching you grow because you just become more of a badass Shannon every time I see you. And I told you that at the second meeting we were going to find her again. So thank you so much for being here. If I hope you all enjoyed our silly conversation, but a lot of you are going through the same thing. And what else can you do but laugh and maybe learn a little bit from today? If I can be of help to a couple who's struggling, who need help putting their expectations on the table, or a client who thinking about divorce, going through a divorce or post divorce and needs help with the emotion, look me up, give me a call. It's what I'm passionate about. This is Lori Wood signing off until next week. Thank you all for listening and be well.